Against all odds, China is recovering, but box office taking surge from $16 million during the first week in late July, when cinemas first reopened, to more than $250 million this past week. So has China's film industry overcome the challenges of COVID-19 and back on its feet? What does the recovery mean for the industry? And with the growth of streaming services boosted even further by pandemic closures, is moviegoing about to be transformed forever? To talk about these issues, I'm joined by film critic Professor Teng Jimeng, internet cultural critic Joanna Chung, and our correspondent Jack Barton. That's our topic. This is Dialogue. I'm Zhou Yue. Joanna, recently the Chinese epic, the 800, actually grossed more than 290 million, making it probably the biggest blockbuster since domestic theaters reopened in July. How do you look at its success?
Well, I need to congratulate China's movie industry again taking its lead in the world cinema platform. The 800 is the China's version of Dunkirk. It's a war epic, first shot in IMAX. So this particular format, it provides a very immersive experience for audience, and I'm sure it's going to be doing very well in the box office. I'm also particularly very impressed about the open-mindedness of the censorship board, allowing a Kuomintang's troop to perform its very best to protect Shanghai. So I think this set the stage of the success for the future movie-going experience for people around the world.
But despite this film's success, the 6 months closure and the postponing of many major releases is expected to result in huge losses for the movie-making industry. Joanna, how do you think this industry has been suffering, and will it come back anytime soon?
Well, the industry, I personally believe, will come back. At this very moment, where I am, New York City, is still closed. While the rest of the United States, 75% of the theater has been opening. 35,000 screens is now, 75% of them has been opened. However, this industry has been making its transformation into a digital kind of platform, such as the streaming, as you said earlier. It is very important that we make this transition. But I really want to say the movie-going experience is no replacement for any other format. The war, the U.S. has experienced depression, natural disaster, war, and none of them has suppressed the movie-going experience. But this time it hit us very hard. But I really think movie industry is a resilient industry. It will come back. As you can see, 800 is doing very well in China. We just need to give it time. New York City is a democratic-controlled city. It seems to be very slow in reopening. But museum has just opened 2 days ago. Theater is still closed, and the mayors and the government is encouraging voters to take an absentee ballot. I think we need to take a more progressive approach, reopening the movie industry as the rest of the states in the United States.
And the industry has obviously been affected by this COVID pandemic all over the world, cancellations and lockdowns. Jack, what is the situation in South Korea? Are local cinemas responding to the complications caused by COVID?
Yeah, absolutely. They've been limping along. They've been devastated, but they are still open, at least the majority of them. If we look at the largest chain, for example, CGV, they have about 110 major cineplexes right across South Korea. About a third of those were closed down in April, and initially they tried to put the staff on long service leave, anything they could to keep them on the books. But when they realized this was going to be ongoing, almost all of them have been laid off. At the cinemas that are still open, skeleton staff operating there, lots of measures in place. I have been to the movies. Every second row is taped off. There's hand gel when you come in and gel when you go out, and the tickets are sold in a way that ensures there is a big gap between individuals, couples, groups, a lot of social distancing going on. Having said that, even when the infection rate was down around 10 a day, people just didn't want to go to the cinema. So what we've seen is even when that infection rate was low, only about 10% of the people who were going, if you look at last year's number, were attending the cinema. And in the past 2 weeks, when the clusters have emerged again right across the country, we don't have the latest figures in yet, but it wouldn't be surprising at all if that figure was way down.
So does it mean that the movie theaters are really reluctant to keep it running because they're actually running at a loss rather than profit?
Yeah, absolutely. They're running at a big loss at the moment with those numbers in there. But again, you know, they want to keep on some staff. They're hoping at some point this comes to an end. There is a vaccine by the end of the year, or at least the current clusters die down again and they can get some momentum back in there. But we've seen months here of very low numbers before the clusters came out, and we just haven't seen those people turning up at the cinemas. Now, it doesn't mean they're against the cinemas. There's a few drive-in movie theaters. There's one very close to my place, and you're very lucky if you can get a ticket. People still want to go out. They still want to enjoy the movies. That's very clear. And if they can do so in a safe environment where they're sitting in their own car, sealed off, that's great. And they're just booming at the moment, the drive-ins. But when it comes to the big cinemas like CGV, they are just bleeding money at the moment, and really hoping there's some sort of turnaround before Christmas so they can get some of the movies in and get some people actually sitting down on those seats and make some money.
Talking about the morale, Professor Teng, for almost half a year, all the movie theaters around the world have been empty. That's quite a scene all over the world. So do you think the success of this film, the Chinese film 800, could probably lift the morale of filmmakers and also moviegoers?
Yes, I think so. I think it will eventually kind of boost the confidence in filmmakers, in directors and investors. Take China, take Beijing, for example. I mean, quite recently, the 800 has been actually running in movie theaters all across town, and in fact, all across the country. And in this sense, the 800 is seen as a tentpole film that actually helped bringing these small budget films. In fact, these art house films are also actually taking the advantage of this new wave of audience or viewers coming back to movie theaters. So in this sense, I think that the 800 played a crucial role in terms of bringing back the audience back into the movie theater and actually restored that very viewing habits. The film actually is known for its superb visual images and also the sound effect. In fact, it is the first film in China that is shot on IMAX, I mean, totally, I mean, from the beginning to the very end. And so it is quite an experience watching the film in movie theaters. And in this sense, I think that movie makers and filmmakers in general in China actually has been inspired by the success of this very film. I know this very small budget art house director, I mean, Gu Xiaogang, who made the film called Dwelling in the Fuchun Mountain. It's a very, very gentle and engaging family drama about these very 3 generations of family members struggling for survival and thrive, to thrive. And it is such a small one. It is also a very endearing one. It's a very warm one, and with more viewers going back to movie theaters, and they will watch this. They will watch these small budget films, and they will watch other genre films.
So you mentioned different genres and different themes. This film, The 800, depicts the moment in the Battle of Shanghai in 1937 during the Second World War. It has a patriotic theme and undertone behind this. Do you think this has anything to do with the success of the film?
Well, absolutely. I mean, patriotism has always been a favorable theme in Chinese filmmaking, And since the third generation of Chinese filmmakers active in the 1930s and the fourth generation in the since 1949, and even the fifth generation, they all favor this very themes, and that to be very appealing to viewers of this very country. But now the 800 is all about a new viewing experience. It's about the war presented on IMAX, and also a film actually with special stunning kind of stunt images, and it's also an all-star studded film. In a sense, the film has been a reinterpretation of the war of resistance against the Japanese aggression by the KMT, and so in a sense it aroused a new wave of this patriotism. But then once again, China's enemy is no longer Japan or the Japanese aggressor, but it is the coronavirus. And so in this sense, the film serves as a boost in kind of injecting a new fighting spirit and telling the world that we are fighting, and we are fighting this very virus.
And this is all possible because China has maintained a very low caseload of COVID and no new domestic infections. But people still worry. Do you think in the coming months the releases of more films will perform as well as this film? Because there are people worrying about the second wave of COVID.
Well, actually, experts warned. For example, the Shanghai-based Dr. Zhang Wenhong actually warned about the second wave. But I think that confidence is more important in terms of revitalizing the economy in general, and also in the film industry in particular. I think that social distancing shall be continually observed and strictly observed in movie theaters and across the country. And so, as for example, when I was watching that film, I mean, I took the temperature. I actually, when I even sat in the movie theater, there was a check. There was a check in terms of whether I wore the mask. All the process by a kind of a ticket usher.
And Joanna, do you think the success of opening cinemas here in China will have international implications? What does it mean for the international film industry?
Well, I think it will inspire the international theater-going experience. And I just want to say the AMC theater chain is producing a very good incentive. When they open in New York City next month, they're going to give you a good price. It's only 15 cents. That is the price when they first opened their theater about 100 years ago. So therefore, we're desperately wanting to recultivate the movie-going habit, because we as humans are communal kind of individuals or beings. We need to learn how to really work with each other. In today's political environment, we need to really coexist with each other. I think movie-going is a good microcosm for us humans to go back to each other and enjoy a movie experience on the screen. I think that's a very good testing ground. China set a good example, and I congratulate again.
But movie is an art form. It is also an industry. It needs funding, and that is a big issue and challenge faced by the industry, because spending halted, many new projects put on hold, many of the loans were troublesome. What is the impact on the filmmakers who heavily depended on funding?
Well, I think the funding will resurge in the next year. There was a lot of smaller production was being introduced. Independent films were right now, it seems to be popular. In New York City, we are again here. We have the film festival. New York Film Festival will be going on, but all films will be shown in the open air theater. So again, Film Festival is a venue where it encourages film production, particularly new film production. So I think this trend of producing new film at a smaller budget will become the future. So I'm really an optimist at this point. All filmmakers or director, producer, or even writer, this is the best time for us to really prep or do a more post-production. I think that the hardship will be gone. We should not really dwell into this pandemic.
No.
I think pandemic will, train us how to be really calm, to learn how to live in adversity, but it will surpass. At the same time, we should learn how to cope with COVID and also think long term. So I'm very optimistic about this financial trend will be coming back, and also investing, film financing will be coming back maybe in 2 or 3 years.
Jack, what about the South Korean business insiders? Do they also feel the impact? How they're going to reinvent themselves to adjust to the new reality?
Well, of course, there's lots of different parts of the industry. Back in April, the government set aside $14 million in aid money for the entertainment industry, for the film industry, but the big complaint is most of that has gone to the cinemas, or the agencies and the filmmakers are saying we need protection. Already the industry was in sort of disarray before COVID struck, because for the past 10 years we've seen all these big historical dramas, large set pieces with lots of actors and lots of handmaidens and warriors, and that's sort of come to an end. That's out of fashion, and the productions are much smaller. So there was already these mass layoffs. Then COVID-19 struck, and it's really devastated the industry. What they're saying to the government, and there was a big panel of directors last month that came together, tried to lobby the government, say, look, we're not, we are an art and we are a leisure activity, but we're also an exportable product. Entertainment counts for $7.5 billion annually for South Korea, and the trickle-on effect for merchandise tourism for the country is $34 billion a year. So they say, we're another big sector. Just like semiconductors, we need some protection, and at the moment they feel they're not getting it.
We've also collected some opinions on where the film industry is headed from social media users. Let's take a look at what some of them have been saying. Worker B 2020 said, yes, what I'm really looking forward to after all of this is over is the rebuilding, reinventing of entertainment. What will it look like? Will it be based on talent and God-given ability instead of selling one's soul? I think this is looking beyond what is happening right now. So, Professor Tung, do you think the entertainment industry will be anything different after COVID is over?
Well, absolutely. First thing first, I think, back to your previous questions. There's a lot of frustration and even desperation for funding and investment on the part of filmmakers and directors, for example. It's not just independent filmmakers, but even for blockbuster film projects, they are crying for investment and funding. And without the funding, in fact, the whole industry will be laid idle in this very especially during this particular moment. But yes, in fact, that with the COVID, the film industry was and has been hard hit and will continue to be hard hit. And in this sense, I think government institutions, government cultural authorities will play a key role in revitalizing by injecting the new capital, because COVID-19 actually caused the loss of many of these capitals invested, because film couldn't be running in movie theaters, and scripts will be laid idle out there. And so in this sense, I think government injection and industry associations involvement will help to bring new investment, the funding, and also create new content. COVID-19's most immediate impact on the film industry is it caused the loss of content, because content needs constant brainstorming among talents, especially the directors and the writers. And writers need these great moments to, in a sense, to discuss, to brainstorm each other, and to come up with a mature idea. And so I'm confident. I think that within the next half year, the whole industry will be picking up its effort and eventually make progress.
Joanne, as Professor Tong mentioned, film production is a collective effort. It needs people to hang out, to talk about it, to work together in proximity. So is filmmaking in America still going on, and what are the ways they're using to cope with the challenges?
Well, a lot of production has been seized, put into suspense. So that's why the streaming industry become popular. But even Netflix has to do its own original production. So even them, they have a downtime right now. So all filmmakers, I think, we should take these opportunities to really polish our script or polish our edit. And this is the high time for us to really cultivate our product, make it into a more soulful, more entertaining kind of product. The industry across the United States, the whole Hollywood, is being hit very, very hard. But I really, really think in the next year or two, that things will come back. It's a perspective. We need to have the perspective of being positive. Social distance has to be observed, but we need to have a reopening mind frame. Right now, not every state is reopened. I personally went to the AMC theater yesterday. That is where the Wolf Warrior was launched. That is the Chinese purchased the theater supposed to be open, but it's not open yesterday. So is the theater in Los Angeles are closed. So these two major entertainment industry has been shut down. So this is a very dark period. I hope it will really change in very near future. I think September in a new film.
I believe some of the industry business people are already making changes because according to some reports, only 62% of cinemas in the U.S. were open last weekend with gross taking of $15 million US. The same weekend last year, that's $90 million US. So some film distributors seems to turn to streaming for their revenues, like the Mulan film by Disney. They relied on Disney Plus for streaming audiences. Is that going to be the trend in the time of COVID, and will that make up for the losses at the movie theaters?
I don't think so. It will not make up the loss of movie theaters, but it will help. It definitely will help. Chinese film like Lost in Russia, the Lost series, and so is Mulan. All these are originally supposed to be released in January and March, are all being postponed, being on hold. I think we should just wait until next year, and things will be getting better. I think that the COVID, I don't think it will eventually completely disappear. But with the coming in of the vaccine and also people getting used to it and do more social distancing, I think the theater going crowds will adapt into a new lifestyle. Here in the 21st century, we're being hit so hard by this pandemic. It cultivates we human how to live from this point on. Moviegoing is just a symptom, but I think we humans need to learn a new behavior, how to coexist with each other. And the film industry is the best platform for us to, really learn from each other through screen.
What about in South Korea? Are the moviegoers not in the mood anymore? They enjoy the comfort of watching a film on their tablet and TV instead of going to movie theaters. Is that going to be the new norm, Jack?
It will be the norm for the time being. You mentioned Mulan there. Even Disney, which has really seen its share price rescued by the success of Disney Plus, its streaming platform, given it posted a $4.72 billion loss for the last quarter. But, streaming is so strong, that's really rescuing it. But even Disney has said, this is really something exceptional. We're putting it on streaming for premium customers, but in future we'll be putting these movies back in the cinema. And, of course, the mood at the moment is to sit and watch at home and be safe. I don't have a crystal ball, and we'd need one to predict where we're going to be 12 months. But I'm old enough to remember the VHS revolution when everyone said cinemas will be dead in 12 months, and then DVD when they said, look at the quality and the television's a bigger, cinema will be dead, and on it went with cable, streaming. And the fact is, individuals, couples, groups of friends, they like to get some popcorn or whatever it is. Individuals take into the cinema and go to the movies as a group, and there is some magic that's hard to nail down or define about a cinema, and I'm fairly sure that when the dust settles, and hopefully that is soon, that people will be packing back into those cinemas again, and they will be booming.
Yes, we've also collected some social media users' opinions on what is exactly the experience of movie going. Let's take a look at their comments. Suhashi Jha said, not being able to watch films in theaters is akin to not being allowed to worship in temples. For a movie buff, the movie theater is a place of worship. Please don't take away our religion from us. This is probably a little extreme, but it crystallizes what he feels about going to a movie. It's not like watching television at home. So, Professor Teng, do you think that might change? People will be more comfortable just sitting at home because of the danger of going to a movie theater in a COVID world?
Well, so yeah, I hate to say this, but I think, yes, absolutely, couch potatoes. I mean, that very population absolutely increased during the past, half a year, since the COVID-19 outbreak. Young people, young viewers actually have already been accustomed to watching movies by sitting at the desk, sitting in the couch, sitting in their home and watching, binge watching their favorites. And so one of the most powerful impact of COVID-19 is that it transformed the viewing habits of viewers in this very country. China is so particular. China is perhaps exceptional in terms of having a class of this kind of streaming film lovers. They're not film buffs. They don't like going to movie theaters. They watch films on their cell phones, they watch films on their computers, and on the TV screens. In this sense, I think it is going to be a trend. In fact, there is an interview conducted with iQIYI, and iQIYI said, absolutely, we are actually reminding directors and filmmakers with small budget to make films that suits this very particular small screens that we can stream on our portals. And so in this sense, portal streamings are increasingly important in China.
So if that is the case, that will make a lot of difference for also for those filmmakers. When they're making movie, they have to consider, well, this is to be consumed by those people watching a tablet or television.
Well, absolutely. Some filmmakers I know actually are considering making two versions of one film, one for the TV, one for the movie theaters, and the other for the TVs or for these portals to stream. And so it is going to be a divide. It is a huge divide in terms of making films in China in the future. Right now, almost every single small budget, I'm not talking about big blockbuster directors, small budget film directors, I've been talking to, are all considering a version of film that actually is suitable to be screened on smaller screens.
Joanne, do you fear that you will become the elitist who still will go to movies to enjoy the leisure activity as the few rather than the majority?
Well, I believe in movie theaters, and that is what the movie is made of, is made for. And we need to go to the theaters. We need to go out. We cannot become a couch potato. We really need to go to the big screen. We need escape. Actually, the big immersive experience provides the best escape from the harsh reality. There's so many other psychological or even physical disease we have encountered by staring into your screen and shrinking or duck down into your small area. You really need to go out. Yeah. Going to movie theater with your friend is the future. I will become... Yeah.
Okay.
One of the few.
I kind of agree. It is still a social event, and we humans are social animals. But we have to wrap up there. Thank you very much, Joanne. Thank you, Professor Teng. Thank you, Jack. And you've been watching Dialogue here on CGTN. I'm Joe in Beijing. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.